Man, I'll tell you what, if I get one bite, whatever that bite is on, I can almost guarantee probably end up throwing that for the rest of the day. Oh my god, he came out and got that. Well, guess what, guys? It might be an underspin day. Oh, there we go. Man, he came up and got it too. We got a little pattern going on. I'm excited. Oh, there's a good one. That's what I'm talking about. Right where it's supposed to be. That is too much fun. I'm marking all these spots because there's a chance I'll be back here next trip. See if we can replicate this pattern. Oh, that's a big one. There we go. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're not leaving this. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, another beautiful day on the California Delta. It is beautiful, but I'll tell you what, it's chilly. It's about 9:30 right now. We just launched the kayak, still using Fish Texas trailer, been money, so slid it right into the water, and it's chilly. It is chilly. Water temp's 49 degrees. Air temp this morning started out at about 42. Even had some frost on the windshield when I got the truck started. So yeah, beautiful day, but definitely still very much wintertime out here on the California Delta. And as I said in the previous video, that is typically a very tough time to fish. However, luckily, fortunately, last video a couple days ago, we did figure a little something out to catch some of these winter Delta bass. Slow rolling, a tiny underspin, little 3.3-inch swim bait, paralleling the deeper grass line. Even though it is slower in the winter, these fish still have to feed. They still feed based on the tides, and we had a moving tide last time, and those fish were setting up on the grass line, and the one bait, the only bait that worked, that was able to trick those fish to bite, was that little underspin. As I also said, you don't leave fish to find fish, and you don't leave a pattern to find a pattern, especially when it's out here on the Delta this time of year. So all that to say, we're back on the California Delta. It's a few days later. I'm gonna see if we can replicate that pattern, maybe expand on it a little bit. But one thing that I'm definitely gonna do today is I'm going to go deeper and deeper into these backwaters of the Delta that I've never explored before. It goes really far back here, and usually after 4 or 5 miles into this particular slough, I turn around. The bite always seems to die down, or maybe it's just getting too far away from the boat ramp for me in years past. But today I'm going to make a commitment to go a little bit deeper, explore some new water, some skinnier water. I know it definitely gets skinny the further we go back there. Yeah, I'm excited. Usually not very excited to fish the Delta this time of year, but now that I know there's some fish back here, I know there's at least one way we can catch them that's got the old bass juices flowing. So we're going to put a full day out here on the water. It's gorgeous. Hopefully the fish are biting. We'll see what happens. What? I mean, let's start with a spinner bait. Actually, I didn't throw the spinner bait much last time just because the underspin was getting bit so good. But one thing that's a little different today is the water seems to be a little dirtier. It probably will clean up the further we get back into the backwaters, but right now with some of this grass, I think this is our high tide, or our first high tide of the day. It's going to start outgoing soon, which current moving water maybe will set up some of these fish. But start with the spinner bait here. See what we can do. I'm definitely going to mix it up a little bit today too, unless they're just absolutely chomping the underspin. And again, it wasn't like it was some fire bite. It wasn't like we caught 20 fish. We got like 7 or 8 bites in a 6-hour period. We had to grind for those bites, but definitely going to try some other things if the opportunity presents itself. Let's go back to what was working. I think I should do it. I can tell that was my first frog cast of the day. There you go, all season without throwing a frog, or a few months without throwing a frog. Forget how to throw it. Yeah, could be wishful thinking right there. That'd be wishful thinking right there. Well, nothing yet so far. Delta, even if it's just a couple days after and you're doing the exact same thing at the same tide, doesn't necessarily mean anything. Nothing's guaranteed out here. Always changing. There's so many factors. Time of day could be a thing. I mean, maybe it needs to warm up a little bit more before these fish get a little more active. Location, as I always say, just keep experimenting with stuff until something sticks, until you get a little hint, and then go from there. We got the hint from the other day, but it hasn't been reproducible yet. There we go. My drag wasn't set that good. Dude, that fish was way shallower than I thought it'd be. What the heck? Alright, finally got a bite. Almost 2 hours of fishing. We're on the underspin. So maybe the pattern is still underspinning. Alright, finally. Thank you, sir. Took a minute, that's for sure. Definitely took a little longer than I thought it would, but happy to have a bite, and kind of shallow too. Weird. If I was to bet on the depth we'd first get bit on, it would not have been that shallow. I'll have to investigate it, but I want to say that was up in like 2 foot in a shade pocket too. You Delta bass are weird. Just when you think you got something figured out with them, they throw a curveball at you. Well, not so much curveball, but whatever. Happy with a bite. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. And just like last time, that fish came out and smoked the bait. So, I mean, I believe these fish are still setting up to ambush, eat bait fish. I mean, I've seen so many birds around here. You know those birds are looking to pluck off little bait fish. So I wouldn't see why the bass wouldn't want to do the same thing. Check this spot out where this fish bit. It's right here off this little Thule point. Oh, you know what? It was in actually a little deeper water than I had thought. You can see it dropping off down into about 8 foot. So, alright, maybe it was a little deeper. And really trying to use the 360 to follow the grass line, stay as parallel as I can to them, and make that cast to the deeper side of it. It's kind of where this has come into play on the Delta, at least for me. Usually I don't use it out here on the Delta. Usually it's just for the lakes, the deeper places, but this time of year when you really want to target grass lines, being able to see what's in front of you definitely helps. Heck? Is that a bite? Or grass? I don't know. More than grass. Felt like something got the tail though. It's the right type of grass, the right depth, where one's supposed to be. Oh shoot! There's two, like, I don't know, 14, 15 inches, like 2-pounders just sitting up on the inside of the grass line. It was weird, they were a pair, and they spooked really easy. As soon as I stood up, they just darted away. Man, I'm telling you, the behavior of these fish doesn't match the time of year nor the water temperature. Like, I did not think I'd see a bass today, up shallow, and if I did, I would assume it'd be, like, really lethargic. Maybe these fish are just coming up and getting some sun, I don't know. I guess I can't rule out shallow. That's a first. I just bumped into a car. I wonder if there's any fish that live in that car. Tide's moving out now. You can see. What's crazy is the high tide was not very high. So I'd imagine in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, when we get to a low tide, it's going to be pretty dang low. These delta bass are not cooperating like I thought they'd be. We still have yet to reach our backwaters. We're coming up close, a spot where I'd normally turn around. So we're going to keep pushing on. Maybe that's where all the fish are. And I've been so focused on that underspin because of the bite the other day. Sometimes, especially out here on the Delta, you get on a pattern, you get on a certain bait they're biting, it can almost be a bad thing. Next time you come out, you're just like married to it. And I've definitely tried some other things today, but I probably should be experimenting a little bit more with just the one fish. Maybe slow down, put something on the bottom like a jig or a drop shot. I don't know. Oh my god, I slipped. Dude, that was a bite. And I didn't get the hook set in time. Oh my god, so sloppy. At least it was a bite though. Shoot. Oh, come on now, man. What are you doing? That was a fish too. What am I doing? Unless they're just really tiny. What am I doing? I mean, this is a big jig, but still. See that bird up ahead of us? He just stuck a little bait fish. I almost feel like the birds and the bass do the same thing. They do, really. They set up to feed, wait for stuff to come by. I guess I'm just not putting it in front of their face or what? The one thing I can say that might be the deal is we have yet to really fish an incoming tide. We started fishing that last bit of incoming tide, but it's not the same tide as what we had the other day when they were really setting up and eating. You know, in the wintertime, they get a little pickier, I guess, with the tides, and they only feed on certain tides. So maybe, just maybe, we gotta wait for that incoming tide to happen before they start setting up right. Delta bass, man. Even other times of year when the bite's good, they just can make your head spin. Oh. As soon as I saw that bird. Alright. There we are. Not a big one, but I'll take the bite. That bird clued me in. Thank you, bird. Alright, all hope is not lost. On the grass line. More birds up here. Maybe I gotta fish around the birds. That's the pattern. It's the bird pattern. Not a big one, but another fish. In a part of the Delta I've never fished. Getting pretty far back here. Definitely getting skinny. But there's some that live back here. That's cool. You never know what could happen when you do something goofy like this. Try a new area. Really, anything like that this time of year, I feel like is a bigger gamble. But it is nice to know that some do exist back here. Oh, last bite too. Come on, get it again. Get it again. What are the odds you'll get it again? Well, maybe the bite's picking up. Definitely missed a lot more fish today than I had last time. Alrighty, folks, just about 2 o'clock or 2 o'clock on the nose. See, if we had more daylight, I'd keep going, but probably spend the next couple of hours fishing our way back. We are quite far from the launch. This is by far the furthest I've ventured away from a launch ramp on the Delta. Even brought an extra motor battery just in case, but I think it's time to fish our way back. Hit a few spots that maybe we overlooked earlier. See if this change in tide, water level, set them up any better. Yeah, I mean, 3 fish and maybe a few more bites. Can't really complain, you know? I think last trip we just kind of got spoiled.
The year before, I think only half the year I did because I just, drive back my truck into the water now.
Oh, shit. Dude, that's the second time that happened.
You cast off a bait?
No. I went up shallow and looked around. There was 2 bass with each other. It's almost like they're about to spawn.
Oh, that's weird.
Like in 2 foot of water. I saw them just right there. I saw it earlier. Yeah, it's weird.
Okay. Saturday, yes. Saturday we'll go figure something out for the morning. Maybe we'll just grab some breakfast and have a breakfast beer so we all feel better. And then, all right, buddy, I'll let you get back to it.
All right, man. I'll hit you up probably tomorrow or the next day. We'll figure it out.
All right.
All
Sounds good.
Later.
Later.
Dude. There's one shallow too. I knew it. I saw a couple back there. Real shallow. Just, I don't know. It's weird. I've definitely casted over these fish. So maybe they're not looking to feed right now. That'd be a shame. There's definitely a lot of fish shallow though. Don't know why they're not biting as good. Jerkbait maybe? That's the thing, when you see fish, you know you miss seeing a bunch more. Alrighty guys, man oh man, what time is it? 6:30. Long day out on the water. Not what I was expecting. That was not what was supposed to happen. As shown in the previous video, found some active Delta fish in January. Pretty much slow rolling an underspin on the grass line and thought we'd come out a few days later, today, do that exact same thing. I knew it wouldn't be on fire, but I figured we'd get some consistent bites on it. Wow, what did we put, like 8-9 hours out on the water today? And I think 3 total fish. Had bites, but only converted 3. But to quickly recap the day, got started pretty early. A chilly morning. Sunny, beautiful morning, but chilly. Water temp was right around 48, 49, just like last time. Air temp was similar. And though I wanted to replicate that exact pattern, try something similar, maybe expand on it today, the main focus was not only to do that, but also to really push far into the backwaters of the California Delta. In this particular section that, as I mentioned, I usually stop at a certain point once I get so far from the ramp, and usually the bite kind of slows down, the water gets pretty skinny. Always turn around there. I've done that probably a dozen times, but today we're gonna push the limits. We're gonna continued to explore the backwaters and got started right where I had some bites before. Water seemed a little bit dirtier today. We actually started on a pretty low tide. It was still incoming, but that high tide at the very tip top of that incoming would still be pretty low. Then we'd have an outgo for the majority of our day, but water was a little dirtier, so I figured to throw some other stuff. I picked up the spinner bait, nothing, did a little cranking, a little jerking, mixed in the A-rig, and ultimately ended up going back to the tiny little underspin. Threw that a bunch, no bites, no bites, no bites. I think it actually took about an hour and a half, 2 hours into the day to get our first bite, and wasn't where I thought one would be. It was actually a little bit shallower in the shade. I mean, it was still on the grass line, but definitely on the shallower side. Threw that right next to some tulies, started reeling it in. One came out and smoked it. So I thought that was a really good sign. At least some of these fish, or at least one of these fish, were still in the mood to ambush. And that was really the deal with this underspin and a lot of the bait fish imitating baits, is you're looking to get fish that are purposely setting up to feed. And that one definitely was in that spot to feed. It got the bait. We got it in the boat, not a big one, but happy with that first fish. Kept throwing it, nothing. Overall, the first 3-4 hours of the day were really slow. Just the one bite to show. I actually made it all the way to that point where I said I usually turn back around and head towards the ramp. Made it to that point without a bite. That was about halfway through the day. And then I continued on. Weather was beautiful though. I mean, the sun poked out, got a little warm. I think it got up into the low 50s today. Very little wind. And the area back there looked promising. I mean, the tide at this point was dropping. It was really low. I mean, you can see from the overhead view just how much water gets sucked out of the system on a low tide. But I thought that may have been a good thing, at least for me, at least the way I wanted to fish, targeting that grass line. You know, you figure with less water in the system, those fish have to congregate a little bit, and what better place than on the grass line with a moving tide to set up and eat that little swim bait. And ultimately, I did get a few bites back there. They weren't big ones. What kind of was funny was what keyed me in on that particular area, or that cast for both fish, was the birds. There was birds up shallow. So I thought that was a good sign. I was hoping that maybe the time of the day, the different tide would play a factor in maybe getting this fish a little bit more active. I mean, it was definitely slow, but it just never really happened. I think I missed a few more here and there, just hard to say. At one point, I did notice some clean bottom next to me, some rock wall. So picked up the jig, started throwing that around. I believe, I want to say I'm like 75% sure we had a couple of bites on that and I missed them. Can't say for sure, especially if I didn't see anything, but it felt like bites, and who knows, they could have been small fish, small bass, maybe even bluegill, something like that, pecking at the jig. We'll never know. But man, it was just a slow day. I think I ventured back maybe a couple more miles. I'm pretty far from the ramp. The sun's starting to go down, and I decided to turn around, work my way back. And really, the last hour and a half, 2 hours of the day, I stopped at some areas that I marked or put waypoints from last trip and today where I had some bites. And it was the craziest thing. I stood up, I saw fish up shallow, but the bad thing is, when I saw these fish, I'd already made casts with different baits over those fish, and they just weren't eating. They were not in the mood to feed. As soon as they saw me, they spooked off into the deeper water. I think what they were doing was just getting some sun. Later on in the day, water warmed up a little bit, air temp warmed up a little bit, got up there in the shallows just to get a little vitamin D or something. After wasting some time on those fish, I moved on, didn't have much time left. The last eventful thing of the day was me goofing up. Kind of the story of the day as far as the struggles go. Threw up against the bank, up shallow, got bit, set the hook. I don't know, bad mechanics, whatever. Fish popped off, and that's all she wrote. Decided right there to call her a day. The sun was setting, so made my way back to the ramp, loaded up. Now we're here, and that is the day. Tough one, but kinda how it's supposed to go out on the Delta this time of year. Hey, I'm happy to get bit. We had a handful of bites, definitely more bites than we had fish in the boat, so I guess that is something. I don't know where I'm gonna go next. I feel a little bit shortchanged from that trip. Not because we didn't catch a bunch of fish, but because I saw a bunch. A couple areas really had some fish loaded up, and now just kind of thinking about the last trip and this trip and the tide, kind of thinking I know maybe the best time to go, when to go, what to do, what to throw. That'll just be anyone's guess, but I don't know. We'll see about a Delta trip next video. Maybe we'll venture somewhere else. Maybe we'll go back to Shasta, maybe Clear Lake. I don't know. There's so many options. That is the beauty of being out here in Northern California this time of year. A lot of places you can fish. Water is not frozen, so there is that. But guys, that is today's video. That is today's tough day out on the California Delta. But as always, I thank you guys for watching, for coming along, and I will see you guys in the next one.